sound of heavy, jagged field stones being piled one by one onto a man's chest. The air leaving his lungs, the ribs beginning to crack under the weight of a village's fear. A pious, elderly woman, standing on a wooden cart, feeling the rough hemp of a noose tightening around her throat, while her own neighbors cheered. In 1692, Salem wasn't just a village, it was a slaughterhouse. It began with children convulsing in the dirt, foam at their mouths, claiming to see the invisible. It ended, choked by the rope, or crushed into the earth. The laws of God were traded for the laws of the devil. Mercy was forgotten, and for one blood-soaked year, madness was the only truth. I am Elias Whitaker. This is the story of the Salem Witch Trials, America's most terrifying and gruesome hour of hysteria. To understand the devastation of 1692, we must first understand the height of the anxiety that gripped New England. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was not a place of peace. It was a dark, cold fringe of the known world, a thin line of civilization carved out of a wilderness that the Puritans believed was the literal devil's territories. The infrastructure for disaster was perfectly laid out. For decades, the settlers had lived in a state of perpetual trauma. They were fighting King William's War, brutal North American frontier conflict, where English colonists and their allies clashed against French forces. Refugees were flooding into Salem with horrific tales of frontier massacres. A smallpox epidemic had recently ravaged their families. And the winters, they were brutal, starving the cattle and freezing the spirit. But the most dangerous tension wasn't coming from the woods. It was coming from within. Salem was a community fractured by bitter land feuds and religious extremism. The Putnams and the Porters, two of the most powerful families, were locked in a generational struggle for control. In the Puritan mind, every crop failure or neighborly dispute wasn't just bad luck. It was a sign. It was a battle between the Lord and the adversary. The origin of the apocalypse lay in the household of Reverend Parris. It was a cold January when his daughter Betty and niece Abigail began their descent into madness. Historians have searched for centuries for the why. Was it ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on rye bread and causes hallucinations? Or was it the suffocating psychological pressure of a society that forbade children from playing, dancing, or laughing? Whatever the cause, the cure was non-existent. Under the intense questioning of the village elders, the girls did what any cornered prey would do.
You have brought shame upon us!
They didn't point at the powerful. They pointed at the easy targets. Sarah Good, a homeless beggar. Sarah Osborne, and Tituba, the Reverend's enslaved woman from the Caribbean. On March 1st, the madness reached its pivot point, while the other accused women proclaimed their innocence.
You dirty liar.
No. That's nonsense, please.
I am guilty.
Tituba did something unexpected. She confessed.
A tall man with black clothes made me sign his book.
In a vivid, theatrical performance, she spoke of a tall man from Boston who forced her to sign a book in blood. She spoke of red cats, black dogs, and yellow birds that served the devil. Her confession was the fuel that turned a local disturbance into a colony-wide firestorm. If Tituba was a witch, and she saw other names in the Devil's Book, who else was hiding in plain sight? The hunt moved from the fringes of society into its very heart. Tituba survived the gallows, but her ordeal continued, imprisoned for over a year in grim conditions. In a dark jail cell underground, she endured over a year of harrowing imprisonment. Cold, damp, dark, filthy, rat-infested cells with poor ventilation, inadequate sanitation, frequent flooding, lice, foul odors, and often chains or irons binding, leading to disease, suffering, and deaths among the accused. Then sold to an unknown buyer in April 1693 to cover her unpaid jail fees, after which she vanished from the historical record.
Man in black clothes.
By May of 1692, the jails were overflowing. Governor William Phips established the court of Oyer and Terminer, a name that meant to hear and determine, but in practice, it meant to condemn. The court relied on a terrifying legal concept, spectral evidence.
There! I see the demon!
The accusers claimed they could see the specters, the invisible spirits, of the accused attacking them, right there in the courtroom, while a defendant stood still in the dock.
They're pinching me! I can see them! They're tormenting me! It hurts! Make it stop!
Don't look at me. Where were you on the night of the 12th?
The girls would scream that her ghost was biting them or choking them.
They're choking me! Get them off!
How do you fight a ghost? How do you prove your spirit isn't in a room when your body clearly is? You couldn't. The machinery of law had collapsed. Logic was dead. Only the scream of a child mattered. The summer of 1692 became a season of shadows. 19 people were taken to a high ridge, now known as Gallows Hill, and choked by the rope. But the most horrifying death happened on the ground. Giles Corey was 81 years old. He was a man who knew the law. He realized that if he stood trial and was found guilty, his property would be seized, leaving his children with nothing. To prevent this, he chose a path of ultimate defiance. He refused to enter a plea. They laid him in a field, they placed a wooden board on his chest, and they began to pile heavy field stones on him, one by one. For 2 days, he endured the crushing weight. Each time the sheriff asked for a plea, Corey gave the same legendary response.
What say you? Guilty or not guilty? More weight.
More weight. He died an innocent man. He died a hero. And he died because his neighbors had lost their minds. The fever finally broke when the accusations reached the unreachable. When the girls named the wife of the governor himself.
This cannot be true.
Better 10 escape than 1 innocent condemned.
The spectral
No
evidence
spectral visions are permitted in this court.
was suddenly deemed unreliable. In 1693, the prison doors were opened. The survivors walked out into a village that was fundamentally changed. The fields were overgrown, the cattle were feral, and the trust between neighbors was gone forever. It would take 300 years for the final names to be cleared.
I have erred, and I am ashamed.
The last exoneration occurred only in 2022. It is a stark reminder that the scars of hysteria never truly fade. For centuries, Salem was treated as a distant nightmare. But empty courtrooms, the weaponization of fear, and the silencing of reason, does that really sound like ancient history? The trials were a test of civilization, and as history shows us, tests have a way of repeating. I am Elias Whitaker, resurrecting the past so we can understand the present. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.